is on good day, they make around 60-70% return on capital. Parle accounts for the mass market end of the biscuit market. Britannia plus Parle together is nearly 85% of the biscuit industry. There's very little competition between these two firms. The result is Britannia is a high-end monopolist and Parle is a low-end monopolist, right? The mass market monopolist. And each of these promoter families are worth $3-4 billion, right? So $8-9 billion of wealth between the two promoter families there. Right? And very similar stories I could tell you about cooking oil, 90% between Marico and Adani franchises, 90% market share. Similarly, in hair oil, Nestle alone accounts for 97% of the baby milk market by our estimate. Ditto in glass-lined reactors, where GMM Pfaudler now accounts for 80% of the glass-lined reactor market. Glass-lined reactors are used to make pharmaceutical products, so dawai and chemicals and so on. Absolutely essential product, and GMM has a hammerlock there. And then there are lesser-known monopolies. Aliphatic amines, alkyl amines, and Balaji amines account for 90% of aliphatic amines. Aliphatic amines are an essential industrial chemical, right? And what you sort of notice about India is our country has created around 25-30 such monopolies, which take home 85% of the profits in their respective industries. And as a result of that, what you end up with is the chart on the left, right? So when we liberalized our country back in the 91-92 era, the top 20 profit generators in India took home, say, 15% of India's profits, right? So back in 92, 93, 94, the top 20 Indian families, top 20 Indian profit producers took home 15% of India's profits. If you come to FY20, the FY19 data is shown. FY20, our math suggests the top 20 Indian firms are taking home now 70% of the nation's profit pie, right? So 70% of the nation's profit pie is the top 20 firms. If you take 5 more firms, the top 25 profit generators in India, nearly 75% of the country's profits go to 20-25 families, right? By the time my career is done, my reckoning is the 20 elite families, right? So we're talking here about, say, ITC, we're talking here about Nestle and Asian Paints, Kotak Bank and HDFC Bank and TCS. These elite firms will take home basically 80% of the nation's profits. So at a very simple level, what's happened in our country is the stock market, of it you might as well forget about them. They're irrelevant really from a serious money-making perspective. I mean, you can do it as a hobby. You can have a play on something like, say, a State Bank of India or a Bank of Baroda as a bit of a hobby. But if you really want to make money, these 20-25 monopolists who are taking home 70-75% of the country's profit should be the core of your portfolio. Now, several questions arise obviously from this, right? The first one should be, why has this happened? Why has our country become dominated by 20 enormously powerful? It should be, well, how do you and I make money from this? So let me try to address these through a couple of charts, and then I'll hand it back to Ravi. So let's focus first on the simplest aspect of monopolies, right? How do monopolies make money for you and me? So what you tend to see with India's monopolies are, if you take, say, the top 30 odd monopolies in our country, the average return on capital employed of an 5%. Right? So at the higher end, firms like ITC, Nestle, in some of their business segments, we reckon are making ROC significantly more than 100%. And then say the lower end, smaller monopolists like, say, Relaxo will be making ROCs of around 30%. You average out these monopolists, ROC comes to around 45%. Pre-tax ROC, numerator EBITDA, denominator capital employed. Industries of the Murugappa Group. Free cash flow is equal to return on capital minus cost of capital. This is the simplest equation in finance and the most powerful equation in finance. Free cash flow is return on capital minus cost of capital. And therefore, if you subtract from return on capital of 45%, assume you subtract cost of capital of 15%, free cash flow for a typical monopolist in our country is employed in a very similar way. 1/3 of it they dividend out. The monopolist typically owns 70% of his company. 1/3 of it he dividends out, and that dividend finances his lifestyle very nicely. 2/3 of the free cash flow the monopolist puts back into the business. Right? 2/3 of 30%. 2/3 of 30% means 20% of capital employed goes back into the business. If you keep putting back into the business 20% of capital employed, your earnings compound at 20%, and that's exactly what you see. Exactly what you see with the in this chart on the table on the right. This is our portfolio. I've anonymized the stock names just to sort of create some degree of sanity as hygiene around this. But a typical portfolio of Indian monopolists compounds earnings, you'll see on the table on the right, by 20%. So whether it's FY20, whether it's FY17 to 20, whether it's FY15 to 20, or indeed whether it's FY10 to 20, a monopolist portfolio will compound earnings at 20%, which is ROC of 45 minus 15, 30% capital employed, 1/3 dividended out, 20% put back in, and the business grows at 20%. As I'm sure most of you know, Nifty earnings growth is zero across 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, 10 years. Nifty earnings growth is zero. Monopolist compounding is 20%. So that's why investing in these monopolies, whether COVID is happening, not happening, demonetization is happening, not happening, all of that becomes irrelevant. You go out there and you build a pack of monopolies and you enrich yourself with these families, Now, there's another way to think about this, and I'll just sort of stop this share and share with you a different chart to allow you to visualize how powerful this whole monopoly wealth machine is, So let's just share a slightly different chart where we can give you a different way to think about the monopoly compounding machine. Just 1 second. The sharing software is a little fiddly, so just give me 1 second to give you the right chart. Yeah. So this is the same chart that we were seeing a couple of minutes ago, where we've shown that the share of the top 20 monopolist profits have risen steadily over the last 30 years. The share of the top 20 monopolist profits has risen steadily over the last 30 years, from 15% in the early 90s to 60-70% today. Now, look at the last 10 years. Look at the last 10 years and see how rapidly the profit share line is climbing. This profit share line is top 20 monopolist profit share in the Indian profit pie, And see how rapidly the slope is increasing. In fact, in the last 4-5 years, the profit share line is going almost vertical, The top 20 families, dominance of corporate life is almost going vertical. Effectively, if you do the maths here in the last 10 years, the top 20 monopolists, we're talking TCS, HDFC Bank, Kotak Bank, Asian Paints, Reliance Industries, these sorts of firms, profits have compounded at 20% over the last 10 years. The rest of corporate India, the entirety of corporate India, sans the top 20 monopolists, profits have compounded at 1%. So 1% compounding for everybody else, including the Nifty, 20% compounding for the monopolist families and for those of us who build portfolios around monopolists, Now, let's go back to the preceding PPT and ask, why is this happening? Why are 20 families basically running away with the entire country's profits, Why is this happening? So in order to understand that, I'll give you a couple of books to you can read at your leisure, So these are the 3 best books I have found on understanding how monopolies get built and how monopolies get built. So here are the 3 best books I have found on how monopolies get built and how much money you can make from it. These are very different types of books, and each gives you a different way to think about monopoly wealth compounding, What Robert Gordon does in his epic survey of American history is he helps you understand how America developed when they were at the corresponding phase of their development as we are today. So America between 1880 to 1930 was exactly like India today. 1880, America did not have a single supermarket. It was a village economy, Then came the railroads in 1880s, the telegraph in the 90s, the motor car in the 1900 to 1920 era. By 1930, America had 500,000 supermarkets. The local Kirana store was dead. And in that 50-year period of 1880 to 1930, in that 50-year period came all the famous American brands you and I know about. So whether it's Heinz, whether it's Kellogg's, Pillsbury, Wrangler, Wrigley's, they all came in that 50-year period. Why did they come in the 50-year period? I'm sure in 1880 Americans were having ketchup, but ketchup was a local business. Each village, each region had its own ketchup manufacturer. Over the next 50 years, Heinz consolidated the ketchup industry. They were the most efficient ketchup manufacturer. They acquired the other ketchup companies or they destroyed them financially. And Heinz is the ketchup giant you and I know about today, The same thing is happening in our country. So when I migrated to India in 2008, I flew to Lucknow, rented an Innova and went in a 50-kilometer radius of Lucknow. Every village had a atta ka chakki an oil mill, and a rice rehusking operation. Around 30 people would work in these cottage industries. 2018, I made the same journey again. In that 10-year period, I realized that all the atta ka chakki and oil mills and rice rehusking operations were wiped out. Each village had 30 people who had lost their jobs, and these 30 people were now driving cycle rickshaws in Noida or in Lucknow. But that meant that the atta that they were consuming was ITC Ashirwad atta, the oil they were consuming was Saffola ka cooking oil, and the rice was some other branded rice, right? So the destruction of the small business, and I'm deliberately giving an extreme example, the destruction of the subscale SME or the subscale regional player is the flip side of the rise of the modern monopolist in our country. Right? And this process is unstoppable. The more we network the economy, right? GST, broadband, 4G, then 5G, I'm sure, low-cost airlines, modern highway networks, fast trains, the more we network the economy, the more we decimate the regional player, the greater the profit share of the monopolist, right? So this aspect of development, the Robert Gordon book, the first 150 pages capture beautifully. There's another aspect of monopolization, which the Jonathan Tepper book helps you understand, which is the use of technology to destroy competition. And this book, The Myth of Capitalism, gives you superb examples of how Google, Microsoft, and Facebook, especially Google and Facebook, how they destroy their competitors. A lot of those techniques are being used by some of India's most powerful listed entities to wreck their competition, right? And if you go to our Marcellus.in or you read my books, you see Asian Paints is fundamentally actually a technology monopoly. It's only secondarily a paint company. Asian Paints is the world's finest big data implementation of SAP, right? Similarly, Bajaj Finance is actually a data science company. It's superficial in NBFC. In reality, Bajaj Finance is the most adept user of Salesforce and big data that our country has seen. And increasingly, the use of high tech by whether it's a Dr. Lal Path Labs, whether it is Asian Paints, Pidilite, HDFC Life, HDFC Bank, is becoming core to their ability to monopolize gigantic industries. Right? So there are two different aspects. One is the traditional story around monopolies, which is the decimation of small businesses, subscale small businesses who cannot survive in a formalized networked Indian economy. That explains much of the rise of firms like Marico, like Nestle, like Britannia. And the other is the use of high-tech, modern technology, big data, data science, SAP, Salesforce, to create barriers to entry around data and identification of profit opportunities. Right? Your and my job as investors is to get to the bottom of this, right? So the three things that helped us enormously make a lot of money out of this monopolization in our countries. Firstly, making sure that we identify companies who are not stealing money. Because if you steal money, whether you're a monopolist or not, I'm not going to make money. You, the promoter, will take my money and run away. Second is we've looked for industries. We looked for industries where the canvas is big. We look for industries where the canvas is big, where the growth runway is epic, where over the next 10, 20 years, we can make a lot of money. There could be niche industries. Allopathic amines is niche, but allopathic amines is an absolutely essential product for the pharma and chemicals industry. And therefore, as those industries grow, the growth runway for allopathic amines improves, right? At a more obvious level, something like biscuits, something like small cars, obviously has a growth runway. So look for clean promoters, look for a growth runway, and most importantly, figure out, doing research, reading books, does the company have a barrier to entry? If the company has a barrier to entry, then look at the ROC. Is the ROC above 40-45%? If so, then the company is participating in the trend shown on the left. Load on to it and make money over the next 10 years. Right? The next 10 years will be epic period for monopoly compounding in India. And I'm sure all of you will enrich yourselves by loading up your portfolio with Indian monopolies. So I'll stop there, Ravi. I'll stop there. And if you have any questions,